It had been an exhausting day. I had plans with friends to head into the city for a night of drinks and fun, but something had already gone wrong. The trains weren't running in the city center, and it was too late to catch another. Instead, they offered a replacement bus service. I wasn't thrilled, but it was the only option. I made my way through the station, searching for the buses, the maze of corridors and signs blurring together in my frustration. After what felt like an eternity, I found a hallway that seemed to lead to the buses. Relief washed over me for a brief moment, until I heard it. The sound of rapid footsteps behind me, growing louder with each passing second. My heart began to race as I turned to find a man, an Arabic man, sprinting toward me. He was fast, his breath ragged, and when he stopped beside me, I couldn't help but feel a chill run down my spine. He was out of breath but immediately asked if I knew where the replacement buses were. I shook my head. "I'm lost too," I muttered, hoping that would end our interaction. I didn't know why, but something about him didn't feel right. Yet to my surprise, he didn't stop. He just walked beside me, matching my pace. I tried to brush it off. Maybe we were both looking for the same thing and he thought it was safer to stick together. But deep down, a sense of unease gnawed at me. I wish I had trusted my instincts. I should have turned and dashed into the bathroom, or anywhere else that could have put distance between us. We eventually reached the bus, and the driver assured us that we were the first to arrive, that there was plenty of time. He opened the doors and I walked inside. The bus was empty, eerily so. It felt too quiet, like something was off. I picked a seat in the middle, closer to the window, eager to settle in and put on my headphones to block out the world. But then, as the doors closed behind us, I felt him sit beside me. Right next to me. The bus was empty, yet he chose to sit so close, trapping me in the row of seats. At that moment, I should have gotten off or said something, but I froze. The man leaned in, breaking the silence. "Why are you headed to the city center?" His voice was too loud for my liking. I could feel the warmth of his breath and it made my skin crawl. "I'm meeting friends for a girls' night out," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. I quickly shoved my headphones in and pretended to focus on the music, hoping he would get the hint. But he didn't. "You know," he said with a smirk, "I could join you. I'll buy you a drink." I shook my head, trying to push him away with my silence. "It's girls only," I said firmly. "I don't know you." But his persistence grew. "We could get to know each other," he insisted. "I really like you." The words hung in the air like a thick, uncomfortable fog. "Please just leave me alone," I muttered under my breath. I tried to ignore him, but he wouldn't stop. He kept complimenting me, talking about how beautiful he thought I was. The words sounded rehearsed, almost like a script he'd repeated too many times. "I really like you," he said again, his voice too soft and too persistent. My body shrank away from him and I could feel my pulse quickening. I was starting to panic. The bus was moving, but it felt like we were stuck in some kind of suspended animation. Every stop felt like an eternity, and the city center seemed miles away. There were other people on the bus now, but they didn't seem to notice what was happening, or if they did, they didn't care. His voice grew louder. "I love you." He leaned in closer, his face almost touching mine. His lips were making kissy sounds and I felt a wave of nausea rise in my throat. And then, just when I thought I couldn't take it anymore, something miraculous happened. A man sitting a few rows behind us stood up. He was around my age, and something about the way he carried himself made me feel like he could be the answer to my prayers. He walked toward us and didn't hesitate to confront the man who had been tormenting me. "Excuse me, mate," he said calmly but with a firm tone. "She's asked you multiple times to leave her alone." The creep didn't back down. Instead, he glared at the hero, his fists clenching. "Do you want to fight?" he snarled. Without missing a beat, the man replied, "Nah, I'd rather you control yourself and leave her alone." The situation teetered on the edge of violence, but before anything could escalate further, the bus driver called back to see if there was a problem, his voice cutting through the tension. The creep, visibly frustrated, muttered that everything was fine and moved away to the back of the bus. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Relief flooded through me. The man who had stepped in for me smiled and gave me a reassuring look as if this was no big deal. My anxiety didn't fade immediately, but it felt like a weight had been lifted off my chest. When the bus finally reached my stop, the creep tried to follow me off the bus, but my friends were waiting for me at the door. He hesitated, then backed off, muttering under his breath. I breathed a sigh of relief, grateful that my hero had stepped in when he did. As the bus pulled away, I realized just how close I had come to something far worse. The darkness is always watching. If you want more stories that send chills down your spine, like, share, and subscribe to Dark Echoes. Stay safe or don't. We'll see you next time. It was late, the kind of night that creeps up on you quietly, when the city lights flicker and start to dim. I had just finished a show in Liverpool with a friend, but instead of going home together, he had made his way to another friend's house. So there I was, alone on the last train of the night, heading back to Runcorn. The train ride should have been uneventful, just the rhythmic sound of the wheels on the tracks, the soft glow of the train's dim lighting, and the slow fading of the city's hustle as it receded into the distance. I found a seat by the window and let my gaze drift outside. The lights from the city began to blur and disappear as we left the urban sprawl behind. Only a few minutes into the ride, I felt the sudden weight of solitude. I had been staring out at the darkened countryside, my mind wandering, when I heard a voice break the silence. "Hello, young man. Are you okay? You look lonely." I turned to see an older man, perhaps in his 50s, his dusty blonde hair a little unkempt and framed by aviator-style glasses. There was something strange in his voice, an unfamiliar softness that didn't seem to fit with the dull hum of the train. His eyes lingered on me as he spoke again. "Do you like smoking weed or drinking beers? I've got something back at my place." The words hit me like a cold slap. I hadn't expected this. I was just a kid heading home after a night out. He didn't look like someone I should be talking to. A chill ran down my spine. I forced myself to respond, my voice a little shaky. "I'm fine, thanks," I muttered. But the man wasn't backing off. He leaned a little closer as if trying to gauge whether I'd take the bait. "Are you stopping at Crewe? You can stop by my place if you want." I was taken aback, my stomach twisting into knots. Something felt off, but I tried to remain calm. "No, I'm getting off at Runcorn." I spoke quickly, almost too quickly, and mentally cringed at how I'd said it. The words barely escaped before I excused myself. I stood up abruptly and made my way toward the bathroom, my heart racing. The distant city lights had now been replaced with dark fields, rolling past like a black void. I could still feel the man's eyes on me even as I moved away. My mind was working overtime, wondering if he was still watching. I glanced back and saw him sitting there holding something in his hands, a small object reflecting faint light. A needle. My chest tightened. Panic bubbled up inside me. I reached the bathroom door and locked it behind me, trying to catch my breath. The train clattered on, but every moment felt like it stretched on forever. My heart hammered in my chest. What was he up to? Why wouldn't he leave me alone? The train continued its journey through the night, the eerie quiet making everything feel amplified. I could feel every bead of sweat on my skin, every breath coming faster and shallower. Only 10 more minutes, I kept telling myself. 10 more minutes until I was home, until this nightmare would end. Suddenly, the train's automated voice came on. "Next stop, Runcorn." I felt an overwhelming wave of relief. My stop was here. The train came to a gentle halt and I opened the bathroom door, ready to bolt. But as I stepped into the aisle, I felt it, something cold and firm gripped my shoulder. My heart dropped and my blood ran cold. I turned, trying to shake off the hand, but it held tight. I looked back and there he was, the man from earlier, now stumbling toward me. His eyes were wide, pupils dilated, his movements unsteady. There was panic in his face and his breath came in ragged gasps. "Oh, fuck," he muttered as if realizing something. Without thinking, I shouted out the only thing that could save me. "Dad." The word slipped out of me before I could even process it. But it worked. The man froze, his grip loosening. I tore myself away from him, running as fast as I could toward the exit. I could hear his footsteps behind me, growing fainter as I burst through the gates. I didn't stop until I was home, breathless and trembling. My parents, horrified, immediately called the police. But by the time they arrived, the man was gone. There was no trace of him anywhere. No record of his name, no sign of where he'd gone. I never saw him again. The incident still haunts me to this day. I can't help but wonder what would have happened if I hadn't shouted out, if I had stayed silent. Would I have been another victim lost to the darkness of that night? Sometimes when I'm walking alone at night, I feel a cold chill. That sense of being watched, of being hunted by something lurking in the shadows, never quite goes away. It had been a long night. My friend and I had just left a concert, and as we made our way to the train station, the excitement from the show had faded, leaving an eerie stillness in its wake. The clock on my phone read 11 p.m. as we entered the station, the quiet hum of the fluorescent lights above us adding to the silence of the nearly deserted platform. The air smelled faintly of damp concrete and stale cigarette smoke, the kind of smell you associate with places that see more trouble than they care to admit. There were only a few people around us. A businessman with a briefcase, a homeless man sitting in a corner, and then us, two women in our 20s, both of us just wanting to get home. At first, everything seemed normal enough. The businessman was on his phone, focused on his own world. The homeless man was curled up on a bench, lost in his own thoughts. But there was one man who caught my attention right away. He was staggering back and forth near the stairs, mumbling to himself in a low, slurred voice. His face was flushed and his eyes looked wild as though he hadn't slept in days. A large liquor bottle hung loosely in his hand, almost empty as he wandered aimlessly. The stench of alcohol clung to him, but it wasn't the smell that made my stomach churn. It was the way he kept glancing in our direction. I felt his eyes on me before I even turned to look, and the unease in my gut began to grow. My friend and I sat down, trying to stay as far away from him as possible. We kept our voices low, avoiding conversation, but I could still hear the man's mutterings. His words didn't make sense at first. They were broken, jagged, like he was trying to form thoughts through a fog of drunkenness. But soon, his words became clearer and the panic started to creep in. "Rip your faces off. I'll tear your cheeks." A chill ran down my spine. I looked over at my friend and I could see the fear in her eyes too. We were both frozen, listening to the man's increasingly erratic rants. He was pacing now, his voice louder and more aggressive. His eyes were locked on us, his every step bringing him closer. Time seemed to slow as we waited for the train. Every second felt like an eternity. The train, which had always seemed like an ordinary ride, now felt like the only thing standing between us and whatever this man was planning. The station, which had been eerily quiet, now seemed to close in around us, the only sound the man's shouting. He was screaming now, not even looking at us directly. His words were a mixture of incomprehensible curses, but it was clear enough, he was talking about us. His intentions weren't hidden. He was going to come for us, tear us apart. I could feel my pulse quicken, my heart pounding in my chest. I glanced down the tracks, hoping to see the train's lights coming around the corner. But nothing. The darkness felt thicker now, like it was alive, wrapping itself around me. The closer the man got, the more I felt the weight of the moment. What if the train didn't come? What if we were stuck here with him? Then, like a beacon in the dark, I saw the headlights. The train was coming. My friend and I locked eyes, and for a split second all I could think about was running. Running as fast as I could to get on that train and away from him. The man was still raving, his words getting more vile by the second, but we didn't care. We stood up, adrenaline flooding our veins, and sprinted toward the train as fast as we could. I could feel my breath catching in my throat, my legs moving on their own. Just as I reached the doors, I heard him shout one last thing. "I'll rip your cheeks off." The doors slid shut behind us and I collapsed against the cold metal wall of the train, gasping for air. My heart was still racing. My friend stood beside me, silent, staring straight ahead. We didn't speak. There was nothing to say. The train carried us away from the station, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still following us. The man's voice, still echoing in my head, wouldn't go away. We were safe now, but I knew deep down that this wasn't over. The darkness is always watching. If you want more stories that send chills down your spine, like, share and subscribe to Dark Echoes. Stay safe or don't. We'll see you next time.